Good morning, everybody. Thank you all for coming. And I'm sure we're going to have people still coming in, but we'd like to go ahead and get started. For those of you that I haven't met, my name is David Johnson. I am the Deputy Director at the Governor's Finance Office. On behalf of Director Amy Stevenson, Administrator Curtis Palmer, and our entire team, I would like to welcome you to Budget Kickoff 2024. I'd like to also acknowledge some of our presenters and partners for today's meeting. The Office of Governor Lombardo, the Office of the Chief Information Officer, that is a name, Fleet Services Division, Public Works Division, Human Resource Management Division, the Office of Project Management, the Office of Federal Assistance, and the Legislative Council Bureau, who also provided our rooms today and our broadcast support. Thank you. We have a lot to cover today, so we're going to jump right in. As a subject matter expert, I was asked to provide the first high-level technical overview. Men's room out the door to your right, women's room to your left. Also, if you didn't grab snacks, they are at the front doors to your right. Please help yourself. Some other housekeeping instructions. Please silence all of your electronic devices. And note that today's meeting is being broadcast and recorded. So please, questions and comments, let's keep them at a professional level. Reminder for our presenters today, speak directly into the microphone and silence your mic when it's not being used. When asked questions from the audience, please try to repeat the question so that we properly capture it on our recording and our broadcast. You may have noticed that we're doing things a little differently this year. We have 2 meetings running simultaneously. We have a meeting over at the old assembly chambers, mainly for directors, deputy directors, and administrators. It's more of a high-level overview, where this meeting is specifically for financial and budget staff. We wanted to engage more of you in this meeting on a technical emphasis than the directors' meeting. Not that the directors don't roll their sleeves up and work hard during budget build, but this group can't even wear sleeves, and you got blisters on your fingers. So, simply stated, we wanted to increase the capacity of this room and get more of you involved. We do really have a lot to get through today. It is going to be a tight schedule. So we're asking that you hold your questions until the afternoon session. For those of you who don't wish to come down to the microphone to ask your question, you also have note cards in your packets. Just get those to GFO staff. Nicole, we have Francis, we have other staff members. Hand them off to me. We'll get you answers to the questions. And that is in the afternoon session. Also, your GFO team is always available before, during, after the meeting. Just email us, phone, text, Teams, carrier pigeon, whatever works best for you. We're here to support you in this process. So now, leading change. I was asked to speak about leading change, and I was kind of at a roadblock on that. So I did what everybody else does. I was on the internet and searching. The questions are, who's leading the change and what's changing? A quick definition of leading change could be an effort to better your business and improve its future. Leading could imply managing people as they navigate change, providing the tools, necessary information, training, and support to set them for success. And I'm sure many of you are going to agree that information is key. It is easier to ask someone to perform a task a certain way if they understand the importance of the process and how you're doing it. Just because we have always done it that way can really be a slight to your team. Tell them why we're asking them to do this. If your team comprehends the mission and the need for the new processes, they can help to be a bigger part of the solution. If you get them involved early, they will have more buy-in to the overall success of your mission. And I think that's just common sense. Does leading change mean changing how we lead? How many of us have worked with good leaders who became ineffective because the parameters of the mission changed, and they failed to change with the mission? Truly effective leaders need the ability to adjust their approach to suit the ever-changing world that we live in. I think the pandemic was one of the clearest examples of that. We were all forced on a dime to change everything we were doing. The state kept running. Why are we talking about leading change? Because the state, just like all businesses, is either changing or becoming ineffective as a business. And our mission is serving the people of Nevada. Failure is not an option for us. Governor Lombardo has outlined in his 3-year plan the Nevada way, empowering the executive branch to provide solution-oriented customer service to residents, businesses, and visitors, so Nevada is recognized for its world-class destinations, its innovative and business-friendly economic environment, its quality of life, and its efficiently and effectively run state government. That's where we come in. GFO sees its role in helping to lead that change by emphasizing analysis-centric assistance to agencies, customer service-oriented team members, less of being a roadblock and more of providing solutions, not trying to run your business. We don't know your business like you do. We want to be your business partner in accomplishing your mission. One Nevada means one team. And Director Stevenson believes that One Nevada is what we are. Take a moment to think about some of this when you go back to your agencies to discuss the process changes in building your budgets. You are leading change, and GFO is here to help ensure your success. We are your partner, and we are here to provide you with the tools necessary to best serve our clients, citizens of Nevada. Finally, thank you all for taking your time to be here today. We know you're busy. We appreciate it, and we hope that together we're going to make the budget build process a win for the entire state. Thank you. Now I'd like to introduce Administrator Curtis Palmer.
Well, good morning. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Truly, we appreciate it. Thank you for those in Carson City, down in Las Vegas, 5, 6, 8 maybe, and those that are listening online. We appreciate your time and your attention. We're sure that you would rather be doing something else, but we're glad that you're here. As mentioned, my name is Curtis Palmer, and I have the pleasure of serving as the Budget Division Administrator for the Governor's Office of Finance. We're excited to be with you today. This meeting is going to be a little bit different than normal because GFO has changed, and we want to portray that just a little bit. So we're going to have a little bit of fun, not with my presentation, with the others. And we'd like you to participate and enjoy the time here. So have a little bit of fun with us. Now today starts kind of the T-minus, right, for budget build. Many of you have started working on your budgets maybe a few months ago. Thank you for your hard work thus far and for the time and effort that you will put into completing your budgets. I need to go over just a few items. Help get us going. Again, this is the boring part. Okay, so we are building a flat budget in this next biennium. Agencies will budget to stay within their adjusted 2x cap, which GFO will send out to you in the coming couple of weeks. And I'm pausing for just a second because the screen says broadcast. So did we lose our feed down south? There we go. But we don't have the slides up. Well, Las Vegas, if you can't see the slides, I apologize, but we'll continue. At least you can hear. So this past legislative session, AB 346 was passed, and that has been a little bit of a mystery to some folks, and we'll talk about that in more detail later. In essence, it says that LO1 Year 2 of the current biennium will be adjusted by removing one-time revenue and expenses, adjusting for new and ongoing items approved in an IFC work program, and that becomes the base year. Salary adjustments made in the current biennium will be added as part of the 2x cap. The now adjusted LO1 Year 2 amount is multiplied by 2 and combined Year 1 and Year 2 for the biennium 2x cap for the 25-27 biennium. Very similar to how we've done things in the past biennium. Budgets with general fund and highway fund will receive an increase in revenue to cover salaries. Those with other funding types in Cat 1 personnel will have to make appropriate arrangements to cover salaries and adjustments by increasing revenue, reducing expenses, or some other creative way to do that. We would ask that you work with your EBBO budget analyst to help guide you through that if you find that you're in that situation and need to make some adjustments. We do recommend that you begin now to work on those and not wait until fiscal year 26. Ideally, have those things in place, work programs, whatever it takes, so that they roll into the next biennium. We'll cover more of the impact of AB 346 later in this meeting. Additional agency needs above the 2x cap will be placed in the AO2 version, items for special consideration. Please note that items in AO2 are not guaranteed to be funded. All items in AO2 should be ranked according to agency and department priorities. If there are excess general fund and highway funds that are available, the GFO working with the governor's staff will start at the top of the ranked list and work our way down depending on funds available. Please note that all enhancements must align with the governor's priorities. The governor's full three-year plan is found on the GFO website and at the front of the budget build manual, which will be released later today. So the governor's three-year plan has 6 core functions, as shown on the slide. Again, any bill draft request, budget enhancement, or regulation changes should fit within and be directly linked to one or more of these 6 core functions. Each of the 6 core functions are broken down into subparts. These core functions and subcomponents will not be covered here, thankfully. But it is incumbent upon each of you and the agencies to learn and understand what those core functions and sub-functions are. The budget activity tab in NEBS has been adjusted to meet these core areas. Fiscal note process will be covered in more detail later, but just a note on fiscal notes. The Budget Office approves executive branch submitted fiscal notes and any adjustments or removal of those fiscal notes. While agencies can submit unsolicited fiscal notes, please check with your assigned executive branch budget officer prior to submission. GFO has a concern if an agency is agreeing to remove a fiscal note so that a bill can pass, knowing that there will be a fiscal impact greater than $2,000. Such removals should be approved by the Budget Office Director Stevenson. These requests are submitted through your executive branch budget officer. As you know, removal of a fiscal note that has an impact may result in added expense to the agency that is not budgeted. These changes may impact the governor's budget, and we need to know that these have been fully and carefully vetted. So please work with your EBBO. And a final comment. My staff has put a lot of effort into this, and thank you. I appreciate your time and your effort. We have other jobs, just like you. As you're building budget, you have other jobs besides building budget. As I was standing there waiting, I noticed that Venus, call your attention to lovely Venus, is working on work programs right now so that she can meet deadlines. So anyways, have a good day today. I hope that you find information valuable. If nothing else, the snacks provided by Director Stevenson out of her own pocket so that you at least have something to snack on. And I believe there's fidget toys or something in there so you can pull those out and woohoo, enjoy. So with that, Jason Gartari, our economist, is up next. So thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name's Jason Gortari, and I'm the Executive Branch Economist in the Governor's Finance Office. Today, I'll be presenting the economic overview. Looking at our agenda, we'll first discuss the national economy. I've broken the national economy out into leading, coincident, and lagging indicators. Economic indicators are measures that tell us something about a market, and they're helpful for providing insight on the economy. While none of us know exactly when the next recession is going to be, you might wonder, what are economists good for other than telling us it depends? Well, economic indicators help us make data-informed opinions, and they also help us learn where we came from. So you'll have to stay tuned to find out. Next, we're going to give an overview of Nevada's economy. Then we'll head into the short-term expectations for the next year, year and a half, and then we'll finish with some state resources of the available economic data that some of our state agencies collect along with their appropriate agency heads. Okay, first we have leading indicators. Leading indicators look at data or things that have already happened and give us some insight into the future. Do we have a lot of parents in the audience today? I'm a fairly new dad, so I'm going to relate this to children. It's kind of like when you take your baby to the doctor's office for the first year, and they tell you, your child's growing in the 50th percentile, 60th, 90th. Well, that's not a perfect estimate on how tall your child will be. It does give you some good insight on whether they're going to be 7 foot and dunking in the NBA, or if they're going to just be average height or the same height of the parents. These are just like leading indicators, looking at data that's already happened to give us insights into the future. Our first leading indicator is U.S. weekly initial claims for unemployment insurance. If somebody files for a claim today, they're most likely going to show up as statistically unemployed a month or two from now. This gives us good insight on what our unemployment levels and unemployment rate might look like in the future. leading up to the pandemic, we saw initial claims at lows that we hadn't seen since the 1960s. The pandemic struck in April of 2020. Our weekly claims shot up to over 6 million claims, and since then it's returned to our pre-pandemic lows, and lows that we haven't seen in over 40 years. Next, we have our Consumer Confidence Index and Consumer Sentiment Index. These surveys tell us how consumers are feeling about the economy. If they're feeling good, they're spending more, and that value's over 100, which is the benchmark value. And if they're feeling more pessimistic, they're more likely to save, and that number would be under 100. Looking at our Consumer Confidence Index, or the red line, we can see our January value is 114.8, meaning consumers are feeling good about the economy and more likely to spend. This is likely brought on by growing employment and the low unemployment levels. Conversely, we have the Consumer Sentiment Index, which had an all-time low of 50 in 2021. It's since improved to 79 as of January 2024, but there's never been a bigger gap between actual consumer spending and the results of this survey. This is likely due to people's view on the housing market and the high prices and limited supply. Next, we have data from the Job Openings and Labor Turnover Survey from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. This information gives us insight on what our labor market looks like and whether we're in a market that's a buyer's or seller's market for the employee. With data through December of 2023, we can see that it's still an employee's buyer's market. However, we are seeing signs of cooling and people starting to stay put a little bit more. If you look at the top left chart, job openings, we're still quite a bit elevated from our pre-pandemic levels. Not quite as strong as where we were a year or two ago, but quite a bit more than 2019. On the other hand, you have hires, which have slowed down to levels not seen since 2014, and then quits have cooled and are at levels about where we saw in 2018 or 2017. Layoffs and discharge have remained relatively flat and have increased slightly over the past few months. Next, we have the 10 minus 2-year Treasury yield curve spread, and this is just another way of looking at an inverted yield curve. The yield curve inverts when investors have more confidence in the short term than they do in the long term, and it results in a net negative, as you can see represented by the red values. This is a popular economic indicator because dating back to 1950, the yield curve's been inverted before all U.S. recessions. As you can see, there's a little bit of red right before the gray bars. The longer the red span, the more likely there is to be a recession. So this would be one negative leading indicator that we're seeing, while the others are generally positive. Next, we have coincident and lagging indicators. Coincident indicators are our real-time data. I like to relate this to, if you take your child's temperature and they have a temperature of over 100, they have a fever. If it's under 100, it's probably something else. Some good examples of coincident indicators are GDP and expansion and contractions data. And then on the other hand, we have lagging indicators. This is old data. It's not necessarily 20 years old, but it's about a month or a quarter old, and lagging indicators help us learn where we came from. I like to relate lagging indicators to a child's report card. So your child goes to school for 6 months, they get back their report card, and while that report card doesn't necessarily tell you how they're going to do in the future, it does give you inventory of their strengths and weaknesses amongst the various subjects that they took for that term. And that's similar to our lagging indicators. Our first coincident indicator is economic expansions and contractions. Prior to the pandemic, we had 118 straight months of an expansion cycle. The U.S. average is 59 months, so we were well past that. The pandemic struck in April of 2020, and we contracted for 2 short months, as you can see by that little red dot on the chart. And then since then, we've grown for 45 straight months through January of 2024. Moving into our lagging indicators, we have U.S. non-farm employment growth. And right after the pandemic, employment growth was robust. We grew at 5%, and it was the fastest growth that we had seen in the U.S. Since then, we've kind of cooled off. In 2022, we're growing on average at 3%, 2023 growing on average at 2%, and then recently, as of January 2024, we're growing at 1.9%. You can see the cooling trend represented by the blue dashed trend line. Not shockingly, our U.S. unemployment rate looks similar to our initial claims chart. Like initial claims prior to the pandemic, we were at lows not seen since the 1960s. Our rate was 3.5%. The economy shut down, and we shot up to an all-time high of 14.8%. And then since have improved significantly. We're not quite at our pre-pandemic lows, but the current U.S. rate is 3.7%. What's considered full employment is 5%, so unemployment rate across the U.S. is still very low. But after the pandemic, it's been a great economy for workers. Wages have grown on average from about 4 to 4.5%, and then in 2023, we've outpaced inflation, which has grown in the 3 to 3.5% range, meaning that we're seeing real growth in our wages. As long as the supply of job openings exceeds the supply of workers, we expect wages to continue to grow. And in January 2024, you see that slight uptick. Next, we have U.S. housing price growth. In 2021, we had mortgage rates that we hadn't seen in over 20 years. They were below 3%. And then when that housing market starts to get overheated, mortgage rates tend to rise. As you can see, home prices were appreciating over 20% in 21 and 2022. Those rates kicked up to about 6 to 7% in 2023, and currently are at about 6.7%. A lot of people thought that this would take us into the blue or a depreciating housing market. However, we actually appreciated our housing prices, which I think shows the underlying demand for housing across the U.S., and currently we have growth at 7%. In all, nobody knows exactly when the next recession will be, but after reviewing our economic indicators, I think we can conclude that they're a lot more positive than there are negative, and there's no clear signals of a recession coming in the near horizon. Next, we'll move on to my favorite topic, which is Nevada's economy. Here's a chart of Nevada's versus U.S. unemployment rate, and then the ranking for December of 2023. Similar to the U.S., Nevada was at a rate that we hadn't seen in multiple decades. The pandemic hit, and we shot up to an all-time high of over 30%. We were hit a lot harder than most other states just due to the composition of our workforce. We have a lot more customer-facing occupations in our state, especially in Las Vegas, which put us near the top of hardest hit. Since then, we've improved significantly, like the nation, and are at about 5.4% as of December of 2023, a little bit elevated from the national rate of 3.7. Like we said earlier, full employment is considered 5%, so a little slack in the labor market isn't necessarily a bad thing. You can see in December, we're at the top for highest unemployment rate. However, if you move Clark County out of the equation, we'd be somewhere in the 3s and on par or near the national average at 3.7. Next, we have Nevada's employment recovery. Currently, Nevada has 1.588 million jobs, which is kind of crazy considering all the jobs that we lost during the pandemic. If you look at our pre-recession peak to what we have now, we have 133,000 more jobs. In the midst of the pandemic, if you would have said we were going to have 130,000 more jobs than we did heading into it, I think most people would have thought you were crazy. However, we have been diversifying our workforce and growing fast in new industries like manufacturing and transportation, which have accounted for about 40,000 of that 133,000 change. Nevada's had the fastest manufacturing employment growth for about 31 out of the last 34 months, almost 3 years in the U.S. So we are seeing quite a bit of jobs added there. I believe Reno Sparks have doubled their employment in manufacturing over the last 7 years. So that's just a testament to the economic development that we're seeing in the state. Additionally, professional and business services and education and health services have added 46,000 jobs of that gain. And another notable industry is leisure and hospitality. In the midst of the pandemic, there were about 30,000 jobs in accommodation that we didn't think were coming back. We've since recovered all those jobs and have actually grown this industry by 4,000 jobs from our 2019 levels. And this is just a quick look at our over-the-year employment growth ranking in December of 2023. And you can see Nevada's leading the way at 3.8%. We've been up at first or second for the past 3 years in job growth. 2/3 of the nation are growing at 2% or less, so we're quite a bit ahead of everyone else. Next, we have household income by county in Nevada, and our 2018 levels are represented by the green diamonds, and calendar year 22, which is our most recent data, is represented by the purple circles. And in 14 out of our 17 counties, we've seen household income increase fairly steadily. The only counties that haven't increased are some of our smaller counties, like Lander, Eureka, and Esmeralda. And then, on the other hand, you see our counties that have our big metros, like Washoe, Clark, and Carson. These all have grown wages fairly steadily over the 5-year period. Washoe increased their wages by 33%, Clark and Carson by 20%. This next chart just shows where the people who moved into Clark County and Washoe County are coming from. And this is just the top 10 list. Not surprisingly, California is at the top of the list in both Clark County and Washoe County. Unfortunately, the most recent data we have for this is 2021, but it ties nicely into the next slide. Some other notable higher cost of living areas or states that we're seeing people come from are Hawaii, Washington, Colorado, and Oregon. And in theory, if you replace somebody from a lower cost of living area with a higher cost of living area, that person coming in is going to have more purchasing power. And we're seeing that in our housing market. Here's data from Zillow, and it has our average single-family home values by county. And if you look right after our 2020 slim recession bar, housing prices almost go up by a 45-degree angle, and you see that sharp increase. This is in part due to a lot of people coming in from higher cost of living states, coupled with low supply and inventory. Since then, those housing prices have kind of leveled off with the higher mortgage rates, but once mortgage rates decline by a point, I expect these values to continue to grow. Right now, Carson City has average single-family home value of $455,000, Clark $425,000, and Washoe's at $550,000. This chart just looks at the value of our existing inventory by the counties with our big metros. And this includes all homes, single-family homes, condos, duplex. And you can see on this chart that Clark is our most affordable metro, as most of the homes fall in the $250,000 to $500,000 range. And then when you look at Washoe and Carson, you can see there's a sizable amount of homes in that $500,000 to $750,000, and then $750,000 to $1 million, making affordability challenging in those areas. Next, we have just a chart that shows the composition of our unrestricted general fund revenues. And Nevada's a very consumer-heavy tax-based state. As you can see, sales tax in the red and gaming taxes in the orange represent about 50% of the pie. Looking at our total gross general fund, for the past 20 years, prior to the pandemic, we had about $4 billion in our fund. And while each year isn't apples to apples just due to legislation, we've really elevated our general fund to a new level, and we're now about $5 billion, $5.5 billion, so about $1 billion more than we were prior to the pandemic. And this is largely brought on by all the consumer spending and visitation that's returned to our state. Here's some data from the Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority. And what's important to note is, our visitor volume and convention attendance are near our pre-pandemic levels, but not quite. However, our average daily room rates are up $60, and gaming win in Clark County is up $3 billion, indicating that the people that are coming to Las Vegas are spending more, and we're seeing a less price-sensitive customer. And this is largely brought on by a lot of the world-class events that we're bringing to the county, such as Super Bowl, F1, Taylor Swift, Raiders home games, March Madness tournaments, and these are expected to continue in the next year. We won't have Super Bowl, but we'll still have F1 and March Madness. I think LSU plays USC at Allegiant. So if your event, you want to be in Las Vegas. And this is translating into our gaming win data. For the past 35 months, we've had $1 billion more gaming win. Prior to the pandemic, $1 billion was a great month, and you might see one or two during the year. Now we're seeing it every month. And as you can see in the top right, Clark County is about 250 more thousand more than they were seeing pre-pandemic. The black line on the chart is the 1 month trend. The blue line's the 3-month moving average, and then the dots are the monthly values. And typically when the short-term trend crosses the long-term trend, you can expect an increase, and that's what we're seeing in Clark County near the end of the chart. On the other hand, our northern gaming markets like Washoe County and South Lake Strip, so State Line, are seeing the opposite. When the long-term trend crosses a short-term trend, they call this the death cross in finance, and you can expect things to go down, and that's kind of what we're seeing. They're not falling to the bottom, but they are returning to their pre-pandemic normals. And then lastly, we have Nevada's top 12 taxable retail sales revenue generating industries. Our 2% collection fees for the general fund are lagging behind a little bit. They're not down significantly. They're actually up over the year, but first the budget, they're down about 20 million last I looked. And while we're seeing strong growth in more of our visitor-supported taxable sales industries like food service and drinking places and accommodation, there's a lot of places to eat and drink on the Strip and stay, and in Las Vegas and Reno. Some other industries that saw the benefits of stagflation, like your building and gardening equipment stores, as you can see by the blue arrow, are being hit the hardest and kind of leveling off with deflation. I remember building a fence during the pandemic, and fence boards were like $9. Now they're back down to $5. So it's not necessarily that people are building less or there's less construction going on, just prices have gone down because there's plenty of supply now to meet the demand for products in that industry. In conclusion, we have some short-term expectations. In the state, I expect ongoing employment growth similar to the nation, but continuing to slow. Our strongest growth will be outside of leisure and hospitality, and will continue to be diversified into manufacturing, transportation, and information, so your data farms. Unemployment rate will lower with all the new jobs and people coming into the state, and the labor market will remain tight and wages will continue to increase. Housing market demand will rise, and the supply will continue to be low just due to the strong demand. I expect strong visitation and spending in the state with all the world-class events coming to Las Vegas, which will translate into revenue collections meeting expectations. And with that, here's our slide on state resources that you can reference later on. And we will introduce Shauna Tilley for our next part.
Woohoo! Thank you, Jason. That was awesome. So budget build, am I right? Woo! So But I'm going to try and liven it up a little bit. I know can be a dry topic. So my purpose here is to tell y'all about the timing of this whole shoot and match. Okay, so we have the budget cycle includes 3 phases. The first phase, agency request. That's what we're all really interested in today, right? That's also known as AOO or AO1. By statute, that's due no later than September 1st. It starts in earnest tomorrow when NEBS opens. Hopefully, it's actually started for you all sometime before now, because there's a lot of planning and strategic thinking about what you need for the next biennium going on. This biennium, because September 1st falls on a Sunday, I have the sad duty to report to you that NEBS will be closed on Friday, August 30th at 4 p.m. So you don't get that last weekend. I'm so sorry. Please plan your time accordingly so that you are not tapping away still at 4 o'clock when NEBS shuts down, because it will shut down. Also a reminder that this submission, your agency request submission, includes your checklists, your fund maps, your position fund maps, your org charts, your travel and other logs, etc. Budgetary BDRs also coincide with this phase, since you're going to need to know what you need to change in order to include in your budget. Okay, so that was phase 1, agency request. Phase 2 is the governor recommends phase. That starts in October and it ends in January. That's submitted by the GFO to the legislature January of 2025. That also includes the adjusted base questions process. I know everybody loves that phase. And that's where we all get on the same page about what you're requesting and why. The GovRec contains the components of the budget that will be provided to the legislature, and it is a confidential phase where information regarding requests are not disclosed publicly. It's usually released in conjunction with the governor's State of the State address, which is usually in mid-January, and this time around it will be transmitted to the legislature by January 20th of 2025. So the third phase, our favorite phase, right, is the legislatively approved phase, where we get our actual final real budgets. That runs through the legislative session, and the legislative session runs 120 days, starting from the first Monday in February. This time around, that's February 3rd through June 2nd. The LO1 budget is then released to agencies and everybody in mid-June, and it opens for use on July 1st. Okay, so key dates. First key date, you guys are all observing it. That's today. Woo! Again, we hope that you've been working on your budget planning already, addressing things that have changed, like service needs, new locations, regulations, new populations to serve, new and expiring funding sources, hello, pandemic money, etc. This is the time for fiscal folks and program folks to really be talking about what is possible and what is needed. This planning and communication is key to the next steps and key to building a successful budget that everyone can live with. Can you say fewer work programs? Okay, everybody's also favorite thing. Okay, so the next date to know is capital improvement projects. CIPs over 100,000 or meeting the definition of a structural or statewide project have to submit a project application to State Public Works by April 1st. Please note that date. That's very soon from today, because today is March 6th. April 1st is less than a month away, so please be aware of that. The CIP presentations will be August 28th and 29th. New and revised technology investment notifications, or TINs, are due to the OCIO, which is the Office of the Chief Information Officer. Used to be EATS, used to be Do It. If you've been around a long time, you'll know those names. It's now OCO or OCIO. Those are due by April 1st, also less than a month away, so also please pay attention to that date. Those will be returned to the agencies by June 10th. So CIPs and TINs are going to be discussed further later this morning, but for now, please note that those deadlines are just right around the corner, so make sure you're paying attention to those. Okay, so the next one is class compensation plan requests. Those are due to the GFO no later than June 3rd. if you think that you want to be doing compensation plan changes, that's a tongue twister, please be looking at the position reclassification section of the budget building manual and working with DHRM if you expect to request any of those. This is not something that you just put in your budget. I want to emphasize that. We've seen that in the past. You need to plan ahead for that, be working with DHRM and probably with your budget officer. Okay, the next date to know is fleet vehicles. So fleet vehicles also are something you don't just put in your budget. You need to get those to fleet services. You have a request form and you need to submit that request form no later than July 1st to fleet services. They have to be pre-approved to be included in your budget request. This part of the process helps fleet to determine what levels of service they have to provide during the biennium, and it helps them to determine what their budget's going to be, which then determines their rates. So it matters to you that they know in advance what their costs are going to be. OCIO, similarly, preliminary utilizations are due July 8th. Final utilizations will be due in NEBS on July 29th. I don't think I have that on the slide, but that's the case. This is how the OCIO determines the demand for the biennium, similar to fleet. That's how they know how much they're going to have to do, how much staff they need to do it, what it's going to cost them. That's how they break down their rates to then know what to charge you guys as agencies. So it's important to you that you help them to plan their costs. I think OCIO is going to talk about them later as well. So this biennium, a little bit of a change. BDRs are not just going to go straight into NEBS as they have in the past. They're going through a concept approval phase for this cycle. I'm going to talk more about that in a minute. But just to know that BDRs, you don't just initially enter your concept BDR straight into NEBS. The entry date to get them into NEBS once they go through the concept approval will be August 1st. And that's so that it can be transmitted to LCB. Budgetary BDRs is submitted in conjunction with the agency request budget. And then the last piece, not on the slide, is the budget division completes the governor recommends phase in early January, as I said before, in anticipation of the release of the state of the state and transmittal, and that's the end of the confidential period. Okay, next slide. Okay, so the BDR concept process. So agencies should refer to the email that was sent to the directors on February 26th for additional information. But the governor's office anticipates two types of BDRs. We have corrective BDRs. I think some people might have known them in the past as housekeeping BDRs. These consist of language to fix issues with existing statute that'll help you do your jobs better. It could be, a tweak to the name of the agency or something about structure, something that helps accomplish your mission or directives. The other BDRs are core BDRs, and those need to be aligned with the governor's 3-year plan / policy matrix. Okay. Woohoo, this is my last slide. Woohoo! But it's also my longest. Okay. So you're going to have preliminary meetings with the governor's staff to approve your BDR concepts. That should be during the month of April. The governor's office will be reaching out to your agency directors in advance of this deadline to schedule the meetings. The goal is to have all the proposed BDR concepts reviewed and approved or rejected by April 30th. Again, two types of BDRs, corrective and core. So then in May, there will be follow-up meetings. Those meetings should be scheduled by the governor's staff. Along with your April meetings, you'll get the schedule for your May meeting. The intent is that those meetings will be roughly 30 days after your initial April meeting. This to give you guys adequate time to develop your BDR concepts. Conversations between the governor's staff and agencies involving the BDR development will not be limited to the scheduled meetings. You need to know that. Communication as needed is encouraged throughout the process. So here's my theme today: communication and planning, communication and planning, communication and planning, okay? Our goal is to have all the corrective and core BDRs developed for final presentation by May 31st. Then in the first half of June, June 3rd through the 14th, agencies should be prepared to begin final presentation of their BDRs to the governor's staff. They will be scheduled by the governor's policy staff as they work with you guys to develop the BDRs throughout the follow-up meeting process. So that would be in your May meeting. Presumably, you're going to get some scheduling for your June presentations. The goal is to have all the presentations complete by June 14th. And then the final review period, which runs from June 3rd through July 29th, will be the final review of the agency presentations, agency adjustments to the BDRs in conjunction with requests from governor's staff, and then a final review by Governor Lombardo. The goal is to have final drafts of all the corrective and core BDRs processed and reviewed by July 29th. Now, this is the part to pay attention to here, because the next step is entry into NEBS, and August 1st, the final drafts of those BDRs go to LCB. So you want to really be paying attention to that, working with your governor's office staff, working through any of your BDR changes, and being ready when you get those approvals to get those BDRs into NEBS so that you don't get left behind. That concludes my comments. I'd like to introduce Mr. Aaron France.
Thank you, Shauna. I, for one, like to print out that timesheet and have it by my desk somewhere as a friendly reminder, so thank you for that information. August 30th, wow, you know, I was thinking I'm going to be a little bit jealous of you guys while you guys are sitting by campfires celebrating on Labor Day weekend, and I'm working, so. Okay, my name is Aaron France, Executive Branch Budget Officer 3 with the Governor's Finance Office. Today, with a little help from the red team, I will be presenting changes to the Nevada Executive Budget System, better known as NEBS, and the NEBS manual. But first, show of hands, how many people will this be your first budget build? Okay, not bad. You guys left the rookies at home. How about second year? Oh, about the same. What about 3 or more? Oh, all right. Continuity of service will be a good one for you guys. All right, well, welcome to Budget Kickoff FY26 and 27 biennium. Things change, life changes, the way we build budgets change. So NEBS must change too. First change is gaining access to NEBS. Currently, all you need to do is submit a NEBS security access form, submit it to the budget office that you're in. Now, along with the security access form, you will need to submit 2 separate signed certificates, both stating you have read and understand the material. One stating you have read and understand the NEBS manual, and one stating you have read and understand the Introduction to State Budgeting training slides that we have. Both certificates are located at the end of each document. All 3 forms are located on the GFO website. So now that you have access to NEBS, it's all about that base. It's all about the base. Up until now, base was the first year of the current biennium, which is the even number year. Go ahead, Jackie. That's okay. Agencies had to edit actuals to update base. For FY22-23, FY20 actuals were used. In FY24-25, FY22 actuals were used. The passage of AB 346 defines base now as the legislatively approved amount for the second year of the current biennium. So FY25 will be your base amount for FY26 and 27. You may hear several terms used to describe the new base year, like LO1 year 2 or LO12. I like LO12, but just remember the official term is the legislatively approved amount for the second year of the current biennium. So now that the base year has changed, do we still need to edit actuals?
Yes.
We still need to edit actuals. So when you go into the edit actual screen, you will see the initial amounts in the edit actual and work program columns represent the legislatively approved amount of the current biennium. Oh, you're right there, Jackie. All right. The actual column should be updated to project year-end actuals, and the work program column should be updated if a work program is approved by the IFC and if the agency is fee-funded and must balance reserves forward. Note, non-IFC work programs should not be included in your M1 or should not be included in your should not be included in your edits and should be submitted as enhancements if a program or the cost will continue into the next biennium. Just one second here. Did I just go through that one? Okay, so oh, did we just do that one? We just did that one, Jake. All right. So here's a snapshot of a legislatively approved budget for FY24 and 25. Please note the amounts in the LO2 column to the far right. These will be your new base amounts for year 1 and year 2. Next slide. All right, here's how NEBS currently looks. For those of you who have been in here before, the screen has not changed, but you can also see year 1 and year 2 equal the new LO2 amounts, which is your new base amount. So you may ask yourself, have M150s changed? No. All M150s, including user-generated and schedule-driven M150s, will still adjust base. In other words, the M150 will still work the same, except are calculated off the LO12 instead of the actuals. Next slide. Okay, so when adjusting base with your M150s, the agency must now determine if the projections for LO12 were accurate and adjust accordingly. Next slide. The approved IFC work programs in FY24 and 25 must be reviewed for any ongoing cost and must be added through an M150. Next. To help with your work program review, agencies will be able to download a work program report for each budget. This report is not yet available, but we will let you know when it's available. The report will look a lot like the cumulative sheet in the work program and will have all the approved work programs listed. It will also break down the RGLs and GLs that were used to add additional authority to. The work program report should be attached to your budget in the account maintenance tab in the M150 adjusted base note. You can refer to the adjusted base section in the budget manual for further direction on this. Next slide. Okay. For agencies with specific cost allocations, nothing has changed, except the base will be pointed at LO1. 2 instead of your actuals. These are the major changes to base. Are you still with me?
Yes.
Were any changes made to the schedules? I'm glad you asked. 2 name changes. One schedule is reactivated with a new name, and one schedule works the same but with a different name. The longevity schedule is now the continuity of service schedule and has been awakened from a long slumber. This is exciting news for those who qualify and incentives for those who don't. So how many people qualify for longevity or continuity service? Okay. Jason, do we have enough money to cover that? Okay. And just when we thought Eats was done changing their name, Eats is now OCIO, the Office of the Chief Information Officer. So let's talk about continuity of service and the schedule. Basically, starting with your year 8 of service, you will receive 2 checks of $100 each. Money, 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 money. Every year after that, you will get an increase of $25 per year per payment through year 14. For years 15 and 24, you will get an increase of $50 per year per payment. And for 25 through 30, you will get an increase of $75 per year per payment. Okay. So here's a visual, as you can see. So year 8, you get $100. Year 9, you get $125. Year 10, you get $150. Year 11, you get $175. So the extra payments build on top of each other until you top out at 30 years with a $1,200 payment. So this is the NEBS 950 report. This is a new report located in the Reports tab in NEBS. Once you are in the report, you will have to populate the rates. Click on the Load Rates radio button, choose your version, which will be A00, and click on the Load Rates. This report will help you when adjusting your schedule and verifying payments are correct. Here's how the schedule looks in NEBS without the first and last name. Unlike the longevity schedule in the past, which you had to manually build, this schedule will automatically populate and can be adjusted by the agency if they add or lose someone during agency request. So back to schedules. All other schedules will work the same, except the base years pointed at L12 instead of actuals. So in other words, just like before, when you add new base amounts in the schedule will automatically generate your M150 and boom, you're done. Except for balancing, that part hasn't changed. So looking around, I see that you want to ask, are there any new reports besides the M950 in the work program report?
Yes.
OCIO has NEBS 900. This report verifies service projections over the biennium for OCIO. This report will be needed to be signed off by the agency, OCIO, and is required. Tiffany Morelli and David Axtell will follow my presentation to provide you more detail on how this report works. So in review, so this is the summary. So in review, go ahead. Base is now LO12. M150 should be included in your LO12 and include costs for any IFCs approved, any IFC approved work programs in FY24 and 25. You have a new work program report to help you with your M150s. Continuity of service has been brought back, and work with OCIO on your utilization reports. And with that, NEBS should be open tomorrow. This process can be stressful at times, so managing your stress is important. So work, play balance is important. Plan your day, ask for help when you need it, deal with your problems as they come up, eat good foods, take walks, get enough sleep. This is a 6-month journey for you guys to explore new programs, to seek out new funding, and with the passage of AB 346, to boldly go where no one has gone before. This will be an experience you'll never forget, so enjoy the journey. Dave and Tiffany. So thank you.
I don't really want to follow Erin now. That was not in dress rehearsal. Don't appreciate that. But good morning, everyone. My name is Tiffany Morelli, and I am the Chief Financial Officer for the Office of the Chief Information Officer. And as everyone has said, that is quite the mouthful, so please, you can refer to us as OCIO. We do. And if you are unfamiliar with who OCIO is, we are the agency formerly known as EATS. So today I'll just be taking a few minutes to discuss the comprehensive services that the OCIO office offers, the significance of our utilization process, and the NEBS 900 report's role in our upcoming budget build. Later, our Chief Technology Officer will come up and he will discuss the technology investment notification process and the cloud investment notification process. So the Office of the CIO is comprised of 5 key units. We have our administrative or Office of the CIO unit, and that essentially manages all of our administrative functions within the agency in collaboration with our other units. Next, we have our information security unit, which is the one who manages all these little badges that we all have hooked to us all the time in our InCast readers across the state. Additionally, they also have the security assessment, which provides some additional services such as vulnerability scanning, penetration testing, and incident triage response. Next, we have our network transport unit, or network services unit, and it actually has 3 separate teams underneath that. That's our network transport services team, or microwave unit. They have microwave site space rental, DS0, DS1 circuits, and Ethernet transport. We have our SilverNet or WAN team, and we have our telecommunications team, which is your phone lines, voicemail, 800 toll-free service. Next, we have our computing services unit, which offers quite the wide variety of computing services. We still have mainframe, and that is where mainframe is managed, is in our computing services unit. We also have print management, Unix, server, non-server hosting, and business productivity suite, or Office 365. Finally, we have our client services unit, and they are kind of split between two different teams. We have our programmer developers, and we have our database administration and database SQL hosting. Next, we have the service desk, which also includes our PC LAN support and field services. If you have any questions on any of our services or what they actually provide, all of our rates services are on our website, it.nv.gov, and they have really detailed descriptions of each one. So whether you are a current partner agency with OCIO, or you're looking to add a service to your next build, or you're brand new and you're wanting to join our agency, you're going to need to enter in utilization projections. So why are these so important? Well, the Office of the CIO is an internal service fund agency only, which means we do not receive any general fund appropriation throughout the year. The revenue that we receive is a direct offset to the expenditures that we incur throughout the biennium. So having accurate utilization projections are critical to the stabilization and operations for our agency. If utilizations are over or under projected, there's a chance that we may have to do a mid-biennium rate increase, which nobody appreciates. We don't want to do it, and we don't want to put that burden on any of our agencies. So we work really hard with all of our agencies to make sure that what we are projecting is as accurate as possible. So what we need is your help in that process. We don't expect you to know exactly what you need. Some of you might have an idea. You have projections, you know what services you want to enroll in, you know that you're going to be building a database or your footprint may be expanding. We can help with that. So please just know that OCIO is here to help you build and project those utilizations. So how are we going to get that done? Like Aaron has touched on, we have the NEBS 900 report this year, and that is going to be implemented by the Office of the CIO and our partners at the Budget Division. And essentially what that's going to do is you as an agency are still going to enter your utilizations into NEBS under the now OCIO schedule, as you always have. Those schedules will be sent to the Office of the CIO, and we will begin a review of every single schedule for each state agency. The Office of the CIO will take our fiscal, and our technical people will then reach out to your fiscal and technical people, and we will work together to ensure that we agree with those recommendations, or if there might be some adjustments that are needed. So we will have meetings going back and forth, collaborating with each of our agencies to make sure that we have the most accurate projections possible. Once we come to an agreement on that, then both the partner agency, OCIO, and the GFO will agree and sign off on that NEBS 900 report. And essentially that finalizes the utilization process for our agency and for yourself. That report will be available for you all to have and to use as support and further documentation backup for your budget. So that is what we have today for utilizations, but I would like to introduce you to David Axtell. He is our Deputy CIO and Chief Technology Officer for the Office of the CIO.
Thank you, Tiffany. As I did see quite a number of people who've been through the budget cycle before, the technology investment notification and the cloud investment notification have been something that's been around for 2 bienniums, and we are now putting a different umbrella over this, the technology investment evaluation, and that will cover both of those 2 processes. As Curtis mentioned, it's possible that many of you have wish you could do something else, but the TIN process and the SIN process are very important for for the OCIO in order to gather data in the state's technology portfolio to enable us to follow the governor's 3-year plan. Thanks. These are the typical goals that we have, and of course, they are pulled right out of the plan, but the transparency, fiscal responsibility, consolidating those services that can be consolidated, and leveraging existing contracts and such. Those are all part of the efficiency of government. We are not trying to, and we can't run your business, but we will look for opportunities to share solutions that agencies have. The TIN process, the Technology Investment Notification, has actually not changed since last biennium. The thresholds are the same. I know people were looking forward to different thresholds because other thresholds in the state has changed, but currently it remains at $50,000. That's any investment over $50,000 with a technology component. The outcome of that is a completion memo after OCIO reviews it, and that is the ticket to get to the budget for a contract approval on the BOE agenda. It also allows us to provide the state purchasing with a prerequisite for any RFP that you may submit. The contents of the TIN hasn't changed. Again, the process itself is still pretty much the same that it has been, but these are the main components. I would just point out that similar to BDRs, it's an enhancement for the biennium. It's key to link these to the 3-year plan. A lot of times we get a question on what is a technology investment, and if people want to be creative, you can pretend that this is not a technology investment. Contract IT services, sometimes even replacement, it just seems like it's natural. We have to replace equipment, so you don't need a TIN, but in fact you do. So these are all the elements on the page that are part of the technology investment notification qualifications. The TINs are critical for OCIO in order to perform a lot of the things that we do. I mentioned before that, of course, we can't perform from NRS, nor can we align with the governor's 3-year plan if we don't have data. So that data helps us to provide cybersecurity oversight and inspection. It allows us to identify when an enterprise solution or service is going to be impacted. If there's something special that you need, we really need to know about it so we can plan, just as everybody else plans. And then finally, we create a statewide strategy based on the data that we get. We can look at the investments that are coming in, and we can project what we think agencies need. We don't do that in a vacuum. We have a statewide technology governance committee, which also provides significant input into that strategy process. The timeline or the turnaround time for TINs has changed. Last biennium and the biennium before, it was 3 to 6 weeks. And that was due to just a lack of resources. We sometimes had a long turnaround time. It's been reduced now to 2 to 4 weeks. I will add a caveat that the onslaught during the budget build will likely delay that and perhaps bring that back to last year's expectation of 3 to 6 weeks, but that will be temporary, and we have been training people in our organization to kind of help during this peak period. The cloud investment notification, again, this is the same process as last time. The idea here is to capture items that one would put on a P card or really very low cost investments for cloud solutions. But we need to identify these so that we can anticipate what security impacts they may have, or if they impact our resources for integration with our existing services. The SIN itself is, the cloud investment notification is any cloud investment that's under $50,000. Obviously, anything over $50,000 would be a TIN, but this is usually very small items that, as you see here, Hootsuite or Tableau. And probably the biggest integration is the plugins for 365. We get a number of those that agencies use that make their business easier, which is fabulous. We do not scrutinize these specifically except for their impact for our resources. So if you have an O365 plugin, we want to be able to put that in our pipeline and integrate that so that you're not paying for something and then waiting, twiddling thumbs for this to be integrated. Single sign-on and multi-factor authentication are two other elements that are frequently lower cost items that need to be integrated with OCIO services. And so that takes, again, scheduling and resources on our part. The key dates have been gone over, thanks, Shauna. To most of these, I think we have the 30th, but I believe I heard the 28th is the OCIO NEBS 900 being finalized. And I think what I will add to this whole process is the timeline looks scary quick for TINs, but know that we will work with you. So please reach out if you have questions. We will work with you to try to get all of this done in a timely fashion. And our biggest help here is our website. We've updated it with a document and a video that describes in detail what the TIN process and the SIN process is all about. And we're just looking forward to working with you, because the more we get information from you, the better we can do the job and the more efficient we can make our technology spend within the government. And with that, I will, let's see, I forgot who's my next. Oh, Michael Nakamura. Yeah, oh, there we go. Thank you. Thanks.
So if I read the agenda correctly, I am the last thing before the break. So I know people might be rooting for the break. So I will try and make this as quick as possible. Thank you all for inviting me. I believe I'm the only person here who is not from an executive branch agency presenting. For those of you who do not know who I am, my name is Michael Nakamoto. I'm with the Fiscal Analysis Division of the Legislative Counsel Bureau. I have Susanna Powers and Christian Tower over sitting in the audience. They're my muscle today in case anything goes terribly wrong. Normally, my job duties, I'm on the tax and revenue side. So you might be wondering, well, why are you here for budget kickoff? And I'm here to talk about fiscal notes, because somehow fiscal notes found their way to my team under other duties as assigned. So we will go to the next slide and talk about what fiscal notes are. And basically a fiscal note, for those of you who've never been through this process, it's the summary of the fiscal impact of any proposed legislation for consideration by a committee of the legislature during the legislative session, be it a policy committee, be it a money committee. And this doesn't matter whether it is one of your agency bills that's part of the budget or otherwise. If it's a legislator's bill, if it's somebody else's bill, could be a fiscal note attached to it. What I'm talking about today, this entire process is actually governed by statute. NRS 218D.400 through 218D.495 governs all this. I'm not going to go through the entirety of it today. Nobody wants to hear that. But I will talk about some of the key provisions. And probably the most important provision is NRS 218D.430. And basically that this says that a fiscal note is required for a bill or joint resolution that either creates a decrease in revenue or an increase in expenditures where it appears that the impact is $2,000 or more. And I'll talk about that $2,000 as we go later into this presentation. Or the other category is that it increases or newly provides for a term of imprisonment, or it makes release on parole less likely. And when we talk about 218D.430 and this requirement, it applies specifically to bills and joint resolutions. But as we go through the process, we talk about BDRs. Because we're actually asking for fiscal notes before bills are introduced, we will actually send out the bill or joint resolution in BDR form. So we talk about bills, we talk about joint resolutions, and we talk about BDRs. We really mean all of those terms interchangeably. So on the next slide, I have to turn my page. 218D 470 requires that a fiscal note, quote, must be factual and concise in nature, and it must provide a reliable estimate of the dollar amount of effect the bill or joint resolution will have. I mentioned the $2,000 in the previous slide, and there's a provision in NRS 218D.430 that says that the fiscal note is required where it appears the effect is at least $2,000. One of the things that we often note, though, is we get responses on fiscal notes back from agencies where it says, we're not going to do a fiscal note because the effect is less than $2,000. If the effect is less than $2,000, we still want a fiscal note, and we still want it to comply with this requirement to have a reliable estimate, even if it's $500, even if it's nothing. We still want to see that. That $2,000 actually, that threshold applies to our legal division for them to determine whether we actually have to receive a fiscal note. It is not on the agency on whether the fiscal note has to be submitted. The other note in NRS 218D 470 is that if the agency concludes that no dollar amount can be estimated, the fiscal note can say that. You can say, we can't determine what this is going to cost us, but if that happens, you just need to tell us why, and that is a statutory requirement. 218D 430 also requires that the fiscal note contain, to the extent that you are able to do it, the effect in future biennia. For the budget purposes today, we're talking about the upcoming budget for FY26 and 27, but the legislation may have ongoing costs to your agency. We would like to know if you can determine what those costs are going forward. If you can put that in your fiscal note, we would appreciate that as well. On the next page, we'll get a little bit into the process. And the process actually starts again with our legal division when they are drafting the bill or joint resolution. They're required to put a designation of a fiscal impact or not on each bill or joint resolution with respect to its effect on state government. And NRS 218D.415 lists specifically those 5 items that are in the bullet points there. The first 2 are fairly straightforward, yes or no. It either meets the threshold or it does not. If it does meet the threshold, we're going to get a fiscal note. If it doesn't meet the threshold, they'll put no, and we're not required to obtain a fiscal note. The next 2, executive budget, and contains appropriation included in the executive budget. This is legislation that is implementing the budget that you are going to start building today. If you notice the last bullet point that says that a fiscal note is not required on any bill or joint resolution relating exclusively to the proposed executive budget. If our legal division puts either of those 2 bullet points about the executive budget on there, we're not going to ask you for a fiscal note because the budget is, in essence, the fiscal note on that bill. The last bullet point contains appropriation not included in the executive budget. That's where it gets a little less clear because it really depends on the language in the bill itself. That appropriation may cover the tasks or responsibilities for your agency, or it may not. So if there's an appropriation to the Department of Education for $1 million to do a task, and that's the only task that is contained within the bill, we're probably not going to send out the request for a fiscal note. But if there's that $1 million appropriation and that task, but they're asked to do 4 other things, we'll probably send out a fiscal note just to find out what those other 4 things are going to cost. And then ultimately, once we have a determination on what bills or joint resolutions have an effect, it is up to our team, Christian, Susanna, and I, and a few others in our office. We read all of the BDRs and we determine the agencies who will receive the request, and then we send those out. So on the next page, we will talk about the process when it gets to the agency. As I noted, we send the requests out to each of the agencies. We're kind of different than other states where a legislative agency would do the fiscal notes. We actually ask the affected agency to tell us what it is going to cost them to do that. Agencies have 5 working days to submit a completed fiscal note, and we have a web-based fiscal note system that we utilize for this process. The Fiscal Analysis Division has the ability ability to extend this period for up to 10 additional working days, and we encourage agencies to do this. We are very good about accommodating those requests. We can't always do it, but we try. One of the things to note, though, is that your time to submit the fiscal note also includes a review if you're at an executive branch agency by GFO. GFO has the obligation to review and either approve or reject the fiscal notes before they are sent to us. And then finally, the last note on this page is that agencies may prepare and submit unsolicited fiscal notes. When we get to page 83, I'll go through a little bit more of that and then tie it back to one of the slides that Curtis had earlier in the presentation. So on the next page, we'll talk about GFO's role. GFO, again, as I noted, has the requirement to approve or reject executive branch fiscal notes. If it is approved, it is sent to the Fiscal Analysis Division, and we compile and print all of the fiscal notes into a single fiscal note for each bill or joint resolution. If the fiscal note is rejected, it is sent back to the agency, submitting the fiscal note for reconsideration and possible revisions. When that happens, and it inevitably is going to happen to your agency, that is when you start having conversations with your budget officer about that. There is also a note on there that says that the director of GFO may submit a supplementary fiscal note if he or she disagrees with the fiscal note submitted by the agency, but in my 19 years almost in this role, that has never happened. So on the next slide, this brings the process to the Legislative Counsel Bureau. GFO has submitted all of the fiscal notes to us. They have been approved. We get all of the responses back from everybody, state agencies, local governments, and so on. We perform a cursory review of submitted fiscal notes, and this is for formatting, completeness, make sure that anything that should be attached is, anything that shouldn't be attached isn't. We are not looking at your fiscal note for content. That is something that is completely beyond the scope of this process. We're not looking at your numbers and questioning that. That's not my job. But we just want to make sure that all of your documents are in order. But then after that BDR is introduced and becomes a bill or joint resolution, we make that information public. We take that completed fiscal note, we send it to our state printing office, and they actually make paper copies of it. And then we take the PDF of that and we put it on the LCB's website and in Nellis for that bill, and it becomes public information, and it becomes part of the discourse for that, that particular bill. So on the next page, I'll talk about a little bit about unsolicited fiscal notes, and this is something that has been brought up earlier in the conversation today, even outside of my presentation. And there are several instances why you as an agency might wish to consider using an unsolicited fiscal note. And the first bullet point is probably the most obvious one, is that an unsolicited fiscal note may be submitted on a bill or joint resolution as introduced when not requested by the Fiscal Analysis Division. And that goes back to those designations of fiscal impact, where it could say effect on the state, no. But you're looking at this bill and saying, no, it's going to affect us. You have the right to go into our fiscal note system and request an unsolicited fiscal note to say, no, that designation was wrong. This bill is going to cost us this, and this is why it's going to. The other reason, and this is going back to the slide that Curtis had, I believe it was slide 8 in the deck, is that an unsolicited fiscal note may also be submitted on the amended version of a bill or joint resolution when reprinted. The 218D provisions relating to fiscal notes and our obligation in the Fiscal Analysis Division applies only to bills as introduced. As soon as a bill is amended, and it's going to happen inevitably, the fiscal impact to your agency may change. It may there may be added obligations, there may be things that are removed or decreased. And we would ask you to let us know what those are. Because we are not going to be the ones asking you. In fact, we're not allowed to ask you unless we are directed to. One of the things to note is this third bullet point, and this is again going back to the bullet point the slide that Curtis had on slide 8. When unsolicited fiscal notes are sent to LCB Fiscal, they do not have the same review process. They are sent to GFO simultaneously. We don't want to step on the toes of GFO CFO who have asked your agencies, if you're doing an unsolicited fiscal note, to talk to them. So when you have those conversations, that's going to happen before the fact, before you hit submit, because as soon as you hit submit, they see it at the same time that we do. There's not really an opportunity to pull it back. So make sure if you're doing an unsolicited fiscal note, have a conversation with your EBBO and make sure that they're on board with this unsolicited fiscal note that you are sending. The other key difference to the unsolicited fiscal notes is we do put them on the website and in Nellis, so they do become public at the time that they are submitted and approved by us, but we don't send them to the state printing office. So people aren't going to be walking around with paper copies unless they actually go and print that PDF. So on page 84, this first bullet point, just relating to miscellaneous statutory provisions, is the NRS 218D440, and this is the part of statute that really says that no, the Fiscal Analysis Division, if a bill has been amended, we're not going to ask you for a fiscal note on that amended bill unless we're specifically requested to by a presiding officer. And the presiding officer is either the Speaker of the Assembly or the Senate Majority Leader or somebody working on behalf of those individuals. So again, this is just our emphasis that if you want to do a fiscal note on a bill that has been amended, use the unsolicited fiscal note process and send that to us. And then the last information on this particular page is just a reminder that when we send you a BDR, it is usually before that has been introduced, and it is a confidential document, and we don't want you to run to the media and talk about that because that's happened, and I don't ever want to make that phone call ever again. So on the next page, on page 85, this is just a couple of other statutory provisions related to fiscal notes. Some of your agencies may have gotten a request from me or somebody in my office related to financial effect for initiative petitions, referendums, ballot questions. We have statutory obligations to do fiscal notes for that. That's kind of separate from this, but I figured I would mention it while we were here as just kind of one of the things that we do related to fiscal notes. I've talked about the fiscal note system, the web-based system. On page 86, we've got kind of the features of what is involved in this system. I'm not going to go into huge detail on it other than to note that we have been using this system since the 2003 session. I wasn't around before that, but it involved a lot of paper and a lot of interoffice mail, and doing it through emails and PDFs works a whole lot better. Then on page 87 is kind of the timeline. We work past the budget building process because this, again, is going on during the legislative session. In October or November, when we get around to it with all of the other tasks that we have going on, we send a request to each agency to provide a contact who is going to act as the agency-level fiscal note administrator, and then we send all of the requests through that person. They have access to the system to customize it the way they want. In December or January, and most likely January because it just seems to work better, we hold fiscal note system training. Those of you who have been through this before know that we spend a couple of hours walking through all the features of the system, how to use it, how to add people, how to create fiscal notes, and how to do just about everything in the system. And then shortly after that, that's when agencies will be receiving fiscal note requests for the 2025 session. So then on the last slide, I know that there's a Q&A in the afternoon, but if you wake up in a cold sweat tonight and realize you have questions about the fiscal note system and you can't wait, we have Cheryl Harvey's contact information. She's the administrator. She's the one who makes us look good when it comes to fiscal notes. Her contact information is there. And with that, I believe I'm done with all of this, and all of you can enjoy your break, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you. We're going to take about a 20-minute break, and please come back. Can we have everybody get back to your seats, please, so we can start? We're about 1 minute out. All right, folks. It's not on. What's going on? Can y'all hear me? Hello? Okay. Anyway, now that we're back, okay, we're gonna get started back up. I would like to bring up Robbie Burgess with Fleet Services. Sir.
Man, it's like herding cats after break right now. I'm Robbie Burgess. I'm the administrator for the Fleet Service Division. So probably one of the best state jobs out there. We get to play with cars all the time. So it's a little boy's dream to do that. Go ahead. So the mission of the Fleet Service Division is to provide superior customer-driven service to state agencies while being on the forefront of fleet management, alternative fuels, and technology. And our strategy is to partner closely with the private sector to ensure the product that we deliver to our customers, yourselves, efficient and cost-effective manner while focusing on one goal: to solve our customers' problems quickly and efficiently. And we're under the statutory authority of NRS 336. The services that we provide are long-term vehicle assignments, short-term vehicle assignments, maintenance, fueling, reporting, and strategic fleet planning. So just out of my own curiosity, how many folks are familiar with Fleet Services and utilize us? Just raise your hands. Wow, I'm impressed. How many do not? You're done. I'm done. Okay, then this is just a review then for everything, pretty much. Review your agency's mission, and this is regarding long-term vehicle requests that we'll get into it here in a little bit. Review your agency's mission and tasks that you're trying to achieve by leasing a vehicle. Focus on what vehicle needs to do, where it needs to go, how many people it needs to transport. And do you need any type of specialized equipment? Example, a camper shield, toolbox, liftgate, or a service body. And when you're doing these vehicle requests, you really need a four-wheel drive, because there is a difference between four-wheel drive and all-wheel drive. So we can get into that a little bit later during the question and answer period. Do you need a specific color? Not everybody in Las Vegas wants black. It's a little warmer, and actually the black paint wears out a little quicker. Click on the vehicle schedule link for a complete list of vehicle types that are offered. That is on our website. Does your vehicle meet utilization guidelines per SAM 1407? Fleet Services will be monitoring and vehicle usage and maintenance requirements for all additional and existing vehicles within your agency. And as it states on the bottom, please contact me for any questions that you have, whether it's, do I need that color, or do I need all-wheel drive, or anything else? But yeah, by all means, contact me. And here's my Shakespearean slide. So last legislature passed AB 262, and basically what it states is that, as practicable, we're supposed to be buying either hybrid or EV vehicles. Our sister agency, Buildings and Grounds, is installing a lot of charging stations throughout the state of Nevada. So you may want to consider on an additional vehicle request. If EV works for you guys, get a hold of me, and we'll put that on the list. And if it's not in the cards, then we totally understand. But then that's going to tell Buildings and Grounds that they need to put a charger at your location. Both EVs and hybrids are available in the NEBS vehicle schedule, and as before, when in doubt, call me. I'm happy to discuss any type of questions you guys may have. Okay, the MP5. As was stated before earlier, the MP5 is a request for a long-term vehicle assignment. This is both for additionals and vehicles that you want to if you want to upgrade. So if you've got a compact vehicle in your fleet right now that you want to upgrade to, say, an SUV, you have to fill this out, because if that vehicle is coming up in its replacement schedule, and I'm going to replace a compact with a compact, I'm not going to replace a compact with an SUV. I have to have an MP5 to signify that you guys are wanting an upgrade of a certain style of vehicle. The other thing, too, with this long-term vehicle assignment, if you're requesting additional vehicles to your fleet, I need to have this by July 1st, no later. One of the things that happened during last budget build is I received a lot of these MP5 requests all the way up into GovRec, and that didn't go over well with the GFO. So if you have any questions on this MP5, by all means, give me a call, and I can even walk you through it online. These MP5 forms are on our website. Go ahead. This is on our website as well. There's a vehicle schedule. It has all the vehicles that are pretty much available through any of our dealerships that we work on through the state of Nevada. So take a good look at it. It has the rates in there, and it gives you a good idea what vehicle that is available to you guys. And with that, I don't have anything else, and we'll have questions later, and I'll be here for if you guys have any questions. Thank you very much. My apologies, Kristen Stout.
All right, good morning. Thank you so much. So my name is Kristen Stout, and I'm the director with the Governor's Office of Federal Assistance. So go ahead. So I'm not sure if everybody knows about us, but I'm so pleased to introduce the office to you all. So we were established July 1st of 2022, and our vision is to support our stakeholders in obtaining, increasing, and maximizing federal assistance. And we do that by, helping reduce barriers, providing inclusive, collaborative, comprehensive, and centralized support in obtaining federal dollars to Nevada. But I think most importantly that OFA, or the Office of Federal Assistance, we provide a multitude of services specifically for our state agencies to utilize that support their efforts in researching, applying for, receiving, and administering their federal grants. So now I'm going to share with you just a little bit of information about that single point of contact or intergovernmental review. I'm not sure all who's in attendance, but you may have heard of that. So when your state agencies are applying for federal grant opportunities, there is the SF 424 form that's required by the federal government. And there are some grants that require an intergovernmental review, and you need to report that. Guess who that is? That's us, the Governor's Office of Federal Assistance. So we have an online form that you're able to utilize to do that reporting. And the intent of that is from Presidential Executive Order 12372 is to really foster, collaboration and have an idea of who's applying for what for those grants in the state of Nevada. Okay, next slide. Okay, so now this information is pretty important to our state agencies. So did you know that per Nevada Revised Statute, NRS 223.480, all state agencies are to report to the Governor's Office of Federal Assistance for any grant that they apply for, receive, or that they close out. So to make things easier and more streamlined for our state agencies, so when you are applying for your federal grant and it requires an intergovernmental review, when you notified us, guess what? It's the same thing. So you don't have to do it twice. But we have our form online at ofa.mv.gov where you can go ahead and submit that, and there's a whole bunch of questions, but please feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions on that. Thank you. Next slide. Okay, we're here, money, 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 right? So did you know that the Governor's Office of Federal Assistance, we manage the Nevada Grant Matching Fund Program. So the Grant Matching Fund Program is available to our state agencies along with all of our other stakeholders as listed in statute. So the program, it allows for providing up to 50% matching funds for new federal competitive grant opportunities that your state agency is applying for. So there are some really key important points to that. You cannot have accepted the award yet. It's when you apply for it or have applied but you haven't received and you've exhausted all efforts to find other match. And we have a whole bunch of information on our website about the grant matching program, but we do have our program manager who can also answer questions. But the funding available, so per statute, we receive $1 million each year specifically for this fund. And right now, look at that amount. We're at $929,800 left remaining for this fiscal year. So please know that if your state agency is interested in applying for a new federal grant opportunity and are having some concerns finding that match, we have a fund here for you. And even better, bonus round, so per statute, since it is fiscal year 24, and even fiscal year, the funds that remain in this fiscal year get to roll over into the next fiscal year. So please keep that in mind when you're planning your budgets, your programs for the next fiscal year. We do have some funds available. The applications are accepted on a first-come, first-served basis. It's, rolling. We don't have a start and end. It ends when the funds are exhausted, and I hope to one day be able to say that. So thank you. Next slide. And just kind of wrapping it up, just to let you know that the Office of Federal Assistance, we are really here for our state agencies. We understand the challenges when it comes to finding federal grant opportunities. So we do have some options for you. We have a cloud-based grant discovery platform that our state agencies can register and use. It's fantastic. We also have a grants database that's hosted on our website if that's more your scene. So we have our analyst goes through all the new federal grant opportunities weekly, curates them that are specific to Nevada. So, we're not interested in what's happening in only applies for other states. We want Nevada. So we have someone who takes the time to do that for you. And it's a great database. It is on our website. You can download all the information, and they're sorted by categories. We also provide grant training and education. So if you want to hone up your skills, you have some new staff coming in that need to manage your grants or want more information, we provide that free of charge. So we do have a monthly free webinar that we have, and this year's focus is going to be post-award management. Our next one is happening in March. But no worries, if you missed out on the past ones, they're on our website. Our PowerPoint slides, the presentations, the Q&As, everything is there as a resource. And also, we have revised the Nevada Grant Manual. It is a really wonderful, quick read, well, quick, 30-some pages or more, that has a really great overview of federal grants, the processes, the terminology. I think it's a great, good starter read for someone who wants to learn more. We also have on our website the grant resource library. We have tools on there. We have a grant writing information packet. We have a grant development form and also a grant fit check if you want to determine if that federal grant opportunity is going to fit with your state agency. And last, we have a monthly newsletter that is chock full of information that is federal grants related, as well as updates about our office. And we also provide a weekly grants update newsletter that's going to hit your inbox that lists out all those new federal grant opportunities. And we do review and highlight some interesting ones that we think that are going to be of importance to our stakeholders, including our state agencies. And then also that we are also here for technical assistance on your federal grant needs. We provide grant writing assistance, grant review, questions related to CFR 200, and anything related to federal grants. And we can be reached at our website at grants@ofa.mv.gov for your questions. And our last slide. Here's our contact information. I know it's in the slide deck, so please don't try to memorize it. But we are located here in Carson City and also in Las Vegas. And thank you so much. It was a pleasure to introduce the Governor's Office of Federal Assistance to you all. Have a good day. Okay, am I introducing? Brian Bowles for Core NV Update.
Thank you, Kristen, and good morning, I suppose, to everyone, although we're getting close to lunch, so I'll try to be as brief as I can be. My name is Brian Bowles. If we haven't met before, I am the project director for the Office of Project Management, embarking in our Core NV project to replace our human resources and financial systems. Long time coming, but let's move ahead. All right, so I just wanted to talk a little bit about the methodology of what we're doing, some of the timelines, and give you guys a really high-level overview of what the project is doing. I hope you all have had the opportunity to log into our quarterly stakeholder meeting that we had recently, where we went over a lot of this information. However, if this is your first time experiencing any of the briefing on the project, then I'll be available later if you have any questions during our Q&A period, and we can go over any questions that you might have. But so, as you know, the Core NV picked up where Smart 21 left off with a new vendor to replace our human resources and finance systems at the core of all of our business here at the state of Nevada. And as we are in a budget meeting, the finances of primary importance to you guys. So let me explain a little bit about our project methodology and timelines. We're doing this in two large phases that you can see up in the slides above me. We're in the middle of phase one, or actually at the very beginning of phase one right now, which we're calling our initial platform deployment or legacy modernization. We're doing this with a minimum viable product methodology and focus. What that means is Advantage 2X, which is the systems that we're using today, that you are all very well familiar with, I'm sure, has a certain set of functionality. And when we move to Advantage 4.0 with our partner CGI, our vendor that owns Advantage, we are only doing that set of functionality that exists in 2X. we need to move off of our legacy systems, as I'm sure you're all aware. They're fragile from both a hardware perspective, a software perspective, personnel support perspective. They're programmed in COBOL, for goodness sake, and we don't have very many COBOL programmers still in state service or alive, frankly. So it's really important that we move off of those systems. And so we're doing that in as quick and dirty a process as we possibly can. And that means that we won't get all the functionality of a fully modern cloud-based ERP until we move on to phase 2. Within that first phase, we're doing them in separate tracks that are separated by time. Our phase 1A is the finance platform, which is going first this time, which I think is a very, very good thing. And HR will be going second. We plan on going live with the MVP for finance at the end of the calendar year and at the end of the fiscal year for human resources. The reason we're taking that extra time with human resources is that payroll is going along with HR. And as we all know, we have to get payroll right the first time. We can't have 18,000 critics that first payroll that doesn't run right, calling all of us, and most especially me, about where's their paycheck. So that is what we're doing in phase 1. Phase 2 is going to be when we add all the bells and whistles, extended modules, and all of the functionality and things that don't coincide with an MVP methodology. So that phase 2 will start at the end of this year into our first exploration phases of what does it look like, and we'll talk about our methodology here on the next slide. And again, we're separated into finance and human resource tracks, and those will come to fruition and go live and will finally be done at the beginning of 2026 for finance, and at the beginning of fall, essentially, for the human resources if we hit all our marks. And of course, we will hit all our marks this time. So this is what the overall implementation methodology looks like for each one of our 4 sub-phases. Excuse me. If you've been involved in project work at all, this will seem very, very familiar to you. The first thing you do is you discover the requirements, which is that envision phase. So we have just completed the first envision phase for the finance portion of the project. We are almost done with the envision phase for human resources, and we have already gone over into the build phase for finance. We completed our first 2-week sprint just this week, and just did the first planning for our first program increment. This envision phase, before I move off to that and explain the build a little bit more, it's a season of uncertainty for all of us in the state. I'm sure all of you have very detailed questions in what are you moving? What are you changing? What's my job going to look like? How is our staff going to navigate this very large kind of a sea change in how we do business? And it is going to be that. We're going to help you work through all of that change as the project goes along. But that envision phase is really more about the vendor than it is about us. It's about them learning how we do things. And so during our discovery workshops in the envision phase, we've brought maybe a lot of you and your staff into our offices to discover what the requirements are of how the state does its business. But it is a razor's edge that we have to walk. We can't have every single person from every single department in the room, because that becomes unwieldy in a design phase where you have so many voices it drowns out what is real, what we really need to build. But we need to have it big enough so that we have a comprehensive view of the operations of our state. Since the state will be changing its process and not changing the way the system works, we're in a no customization, low configuration implementation of this product. It really means that your processes may change, but we're very, very dedicated to providing you the outcomes that you need to do your job. So that's one of the mantras we have over in my office is, this sounds a little harsh, but we don't care about your process, but we care deeply about your outcomes, because that's what we need to get you so that you can do your job and meet your requirements. So as we move into the build phase, we go into a fully agile methodology. And again, if you're not familiar with that, this is a hybrid project methodology where it's traditional, but within it, there are a lot of agile methodologies. And when we get to build, that agile means that we're working in sprints. We set our work, and we work for 2 weeks really hard, and we build a thing. And then we immediately do user acceptance testing on that thing. And if it's a little bit wrong, then we throw it right back into the backlog of work, and we fix it until it's right. And we build little bits of increments all the way through the summer and into the fall when we'll get done with our build phase. This will be the first time that you guys and your staff will be able to interact with the project and kind of see what it is we're building, as we'll be reaching out for those user acceptance testers to come in and help us review the functionality that we build, and to break it, and to tell us we did a bad job, and give us recommendations on how to do a better job during our next sprint. So that's the build phase. Once we get done and we're happy with what we've built, we go into the achieve phase. And so that'll be that end user training where all of our staff across the state will be trained in how the new Advantage system will work. We'll be training the trainers so that we can propagate knowledge and more trainers for the future for our staff, because of course we're going to be hiring new people as the future goes on and they'll need to learn this stuff. Also, we'll be doing our cutover activities and then finally doing that cutover and go live at the end of the calendar year here. That'll take us into the last, which is hypercare. Almost there. Take us into the last phase, which is hypercare. That's basically all of the support from the vendor and my staff over at OPM to support you after we go live, because that is going to be a big change. They're going to have a lot of questions. Things might not be exactly where you see them or you need them. There might be things broken. We understand that. There will be obstacles. There will be bumps and bruises, but that hypercare is a 2-month period where we'll be no less than one phone call away from immediately diving in with you and your staff to get past whatever obstacle that you have in front of you. And this overall methodology will be replicated in each one of those 4 phases that I outlined before. All right, so here's the last slide I have for you. It's definitely an eye chart, so I don't expect you to be able to read it here, but I think it's in your handout. This is our overall Gantt chart of when we're doing what we're doing. The blue bars up there represent phase 1. The darker bar is finance. The lighter bar is human resources. And you can see there with that little green star at the end of the second swim lane, which represents basically December of this year, is when we'll be doing that cutover activity. Just a heads up, right now, penciled on our calendars is December 20th. That is the day we want to start cutover activities, so please have all your bills paid by December 20th, because the system, knock on wood, will be going down then and remain down until we go live with the new system. We're shooting for the 1st, but that next payroll run, and that's why we've chosen the 20th, and then January 3rd as the next time payroll has to run. And so we're hoping to get our cutover activities complete within that 2-week period. So it's a good time to take some time off for Christmas. I know my staff and I won't be doing it this year, but be a good time for y'all. The gold phases, the gold bars up there are our phase 2. You can see that finance discovery starts in September of this year before we're even going live. So we're immediately going to dive right back into requirements gathering on all of the new functionality. And we're actually building what phase 2 is going to look like through the summer of phase 1 as we're doing our build. We've already had instances where we thought we're going to build X, Y, and Z, and then we've realized, well, Z's not MVP. We're going to kick it to phase 2. And that's what we're going to do throughout this summer, is things that don't immediately replicate and meet that MVP are going to get kicked to phase 2, because whatever slows us down is getting pitched over to phase 2. So that is the story of Core NV in a nutshell, and I'll be around later for questions. Thanks for taking the time.
You didn't introduce us, Brian. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. Good morning. I'm Will Lewis. I'm the new administrator for State Public Works Division. And although I'm new in the position, I'm pretty seasoned overall. I have served as Director of Planning and Design at the College of Southern Nevada for 9 years. And for 5 years, I served as a project manager with State Public Works Board. And I've got a lot of experience of developing and preparing CIP applications on numerous agency projects. So I'm going to give just a brief overview, and then I'm going to turn it over to my colleague. I'm going to talk a little bit about what a CIP project is and what it's not. And then Brian Walker, Deputy Administrator, is going to talk a little bit about the CIP application. First slide, please. Okay, right there. That's good. As shown in this slide, a CIP project will never be a project that involves carpeting, painting, or mechanical maintenance projects. However, a project that involves roofing or fire safety, as well as structural projects, or any projects over $100,000, those projects will always be a CIP project. Next slide. This project is my pride and joy. This is the last project I did as a project manager before taking on the assignment of administrator. It is the Advanced Engineering Building at the College of Southern Nevada. We celebrated the grand opening just a few weeks ago, February 24th. And I got to tell you, this 52,000 square foot building is a jewel on the campus. It came about because of the increased enrollment in the engineering program, and it was based on a 50-50 split in financing between the state of Nevada and UNLV. And what you're looking at is a photograph of the building when it was in construction. Thank you. This is not a CIP project. It is a homestead cabin. It had one door, two windows, which was a requirement of the Homestead Act of 1862. As you look at it, you notice that there was no structural inspections performed on the structure. With that in mind, you see the results. I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Brian. He's going to talk a little bit about the application of the CIP process. Brian, please help him out.
All right, thank you, Will. So, good morning again. My name is Brian Walker, Deputy Administrator with the State Public Works Division. So, so just to kind of kick us off, our process relies on state agencies to request projects for consideration in the CIP. We've developed an application website to guide you through the process, and that address is shown on the slide deck here, and it's available on our website. One thing, please note that to access the site, you do need to be on Silvernet, and you do need to register and create a login for the site. If you have questions, please contact me. Through the process, we have Public Works project managers with their contact information listed on the site, so please feel free to ask questions to them as well. It's a thorough process. There's a lot of steps, and so please don't spin your wheels. Please ask questions. We're here, and we're happy to answer the questions. The site is already open. The applications are due on April 1st. It's coming up quick. The next big date for this is August 28 and 29, where you agencies will present the projects to the State Public Works Board. The last thing to talk about on this slide is that unfunded projects are preloaded into the system already. So, work we've done in previous sessions on developing projects, they're already there. You do not need to re-request it. So the application is split into 6 sections. The first 2 sections are required for every project. Section 3 asks additional information when projects include outside funding. So as a little more on that, outside funding is that is not state funds, meaning state general funds or general obligation bonds. So a simpler way to say that might also be to say that it's a federal grant, something that your agency is bringing to the process. Steps 4 and 5 are for new construction, and the last one, office space planning, section 6, collects information for new construction, building remodels, and additions to help identify long-term planning and space consolidation opportunities. So it's some more thinking and forward-thinking questions. Next section. Thanks. All right. So this is a picture. Remember this picture. So when you're putting your application together, we need a clear and concise application of what your project is. You're thinking that you're asking for the picture on the top, which is looks like it's a nice fifth wheel, and what you've described to us is the picture on the bottom. And I'm not sure what that is. It's kind of cool though, but I don't know what it is. But if you describe that, that's might be what you end up with. So please be clear and concise with what you want. Take a look when you're going through the application. It'll indicate the length of the answer for each question. So don't waste your time. We don't need a book if we're not asking for a book. So please pay attention to that. But do answer everything completely on the application. And keep in mind too that we understand you guys are not the experts on putting these projects together. We've got project managers who are experts that can help you with the process. So do the best you can with the questions, answer what you can completely, and we'll have a project manager help fill out what needs to be filled out later on in the process. So the administrative section, first section, again, is the beginning of the application. That's a simple who, what, where, when. Questions necessary to start the application. Thanks. The narrative section, this is probably the most important section when you're filling everything out. This is important because it provides the justification and background on the project. This is your opportunity to tell us why the project is important and why we need to fund this project through the process. So remember, so last session we had 700 projects that were requested for the CIP, and we funded about 100 of them. So the justification tells us why this is more important than the other projects. So please, this is where we really need your input to help get these projects funded. Part of that justification is to talk about the ramifications of why the project, or what happens if it's not approved, health, safety, and legal issues, and what happens if we don't fund the project. How does this disrupt your process? Thanks. So the next section, the outside funding source section, this is required if you have outside funding coming to the project, and this will ask about details and specifics of those funds. We need to know the funding breakdown the project will need, the exact funding source of that funding, and the state match requirement. It basically, is it a 75% outside fund, 25% state fund, those sorts of things. What restrictions will these outside funds impart on the project? How is it going to make the project look? An example of that would be kind of a recent thing is, would the outside funds require BABA funding? If you don't know that acronym, that's great. It's no fun. It's, Buy America, Build America. So things like that. We'll also ask about, what actions does your agency need to make the funding available? Do you still need to apply for this application? When will you apply for the application? When will the funds be available? When will the funds expire? Those sorts of questions. We need to know those answers to make sure that as we put the project together, we need to understand that these outside funds will work with the CIP process, which means we can, get the project funded. Thanks. The next question is site analysis, which is something for new construction, and simply ask some questions to help determine what we need to do to build a facility on a new site. Programming is for new construction, building remodels and additions, and this helps define your project from an architecture perspective. Square footage needs, what type of building do you need, which is an occupancy, how much staff or FTEs will be there, and what type of furnishing, fixtures, and equipment, FF&E, what do you need to put inside the building after it's built. The last section, this again is the office space planning section, and it's for new construction, building remodels, and additions. This section, again, helps us understand the potential of space consolidation opportunities and long-term goals that you have for the facility. So it's a forward-looking section, and it's important because it helps us look for opportunities for this project as it relates to other projects that your agency or other agencies bring forward in the CIP, so we can start to think how to maybe consolidate space or be more efficient with buildings or products that we're doing. We might be able to do a project that fits more than one need. So we're asking some questions about that. All right, so the approval process. Here's the timeline of what the CIP looks like. As I mentioned, the application website is already open, and the applications are due on April 1st. So after April 1st, each project will be assigned to a project manager, and that person will contact your staff, visit the project site, and develop a scope and budget based on your project request. And that's why I said don't worry about it. If you have something wrong on the application, that's what we're here to do. We're going to fill out the rest of it and help you put the project together. At the end of July, Public Works Management will schedule a meeting with your agency's management to review the scope for each project that's been developed. So you'll get an opportunity to review with us what we put together and make sure that we are talking the same language. After that meeting, we'll have a meeting August 28 and 29 where agencies will present the developed projects to the State Public Works Board. It's a 2-day meeting, so you'll have to come and do that with us. After that meeting, Administrator Lewis will make the administrator's recommendation to the State Public Works Board that end of September, and then the State Public Works Board will take that recommendation and package it up and send it to the governor's office by October 1st. The governor's office will take that and it rolls into the state budget that they will prepare, that they present to the legislature in January 2025, and then we're going to be at the next session. So I just gave myself anxiety. Because we're getting ready, we're talking about next year already, but that's kind of in a nutshell. One thing too is, please also kind of keep in mind that, as these projects move through the legislative process, we'll need your support coming to hearings and answering questions. So there's a lot of steps. All right, so the last thing I want to touch on is facility condition assessment reports. So this is something else that State Public Works does. We have a group that periodically inspects state-owned buildings around the state, and we publish reports on the conditions of those buildings. Inside those reports, it has recommended projects, and it has a construction cost for those projects. And we encourage you guys to look at those reports for your CIP requests. Many of what's in those projects are things that are CIP projects, but also what's in those reports are many projects that are not CIPs. Those are probably something that are more appropriate for your budget requests. And so please do take a look at those. One thing that is important to note is the dollar amounts in those reports are just that. They are a planning level construction project amount. It does not include soft costs that you'd have in like an overall project, meaning permitting, design, construction contingency, things like that. So what's in that report is not designed to be thrown directly into a budget request or CIP. So keep that in mind. It's a good starting point, but it needs some additional due diligence before you put that in a request. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Administrator Luz. Thank you, guys.
I got an advantage. I sit next to Francine, so I know how much time I got left. I'm going to stay on time. All right. Thank you, Brian. Appreciate that. I just want to touch real brief because we're out of time. When the governor signed the bill back to work, first of all, we experienced something in this country we've never experienced before, COVID-19. And when the governor signed the bill to put us all back to work, he instituted a certain couple of things that really we've been building on. One of the challenges we took on at Public Work was to increase the amount of state-owned facilities. The governor signed a $1.2 billion bill to make that happen. We were ecstatic. To date, we set a goal of 975,000 square feet, and right now we have 875,000 square feet. We're buying buildings, so more and better things are yet to come, guys. So in conclusion, I'm just going to wrap it up by saying we're here. We got our website. If you look at some of the slides, if you have questions, please see our website if you have any questions. As Brian made mention, we have project managers that are there to assist if you have unique questions to your setting up your CIP applications, and we're here to serve. So thank you so much for your time, and we look forward to working with everybody real soon. Thank you.
Now, we're a little ahead of schedule. I don't think anybody's going to argue with the longer lunch break. So please, everybody come back at 1 o'clock. Appreciate it.